I have to use my alma mater as the example here, and I hate to do it because I think people automatically say you're just being a homer. I don't think that's the case, but I guess I'll accept the criticism if you want to throw it at me. But it works well, so follow along. It turns out my alma mater is the perfect example of what I'm about to talk about and point out a much better way to do it. You can agree or disagree. The University of Texas can win its league in football. It should, let me correct that, should win its league in football, but I don't know that I would bet on that. Okay. But assuming the University of Texas wins its league in football, it would not even be in a playoff, most likely. Now, how much sense does that really make? How is it even really a playoff? What I'm getting at is I can't stand the setup and I can't stand the conversations. Can't stand them. Everybody likes to say the conversations about the college playoff are interesting and compelling. No, they're not. They're really pretty dumb. And I don't know why more people don't find it kind of frustrating. So give me a chance here. It's one of the oldest talk show topics that I can think of that for some reason has now been left alone. I don't know if people are numb or maybe I'm wrong and you really do like this setup, but it's been left alone. I don't even hear that many people anymore say, man, what a dumb idea. What a dumb system. I mean, every single day it is opinion-based for no reason whatsoever. And I don't even hear people criticize that often. In fact, unfortunately, I hear people embracing the current fake playoff system that's not really a playoff. I hope it doesn't mean you approve. If you approve, then let's have at it. At least give my idea a chance here. I'll lay out a much better way to do it that I don't know how you wouldn't agree. It's a much better way to run a real college playoff system because what you have now is not a playoff at all. At all. Okay, my idea starts by having, get this, an actual playoff. You know, we have games and stuff. The present day system is as dumb or dumber, I think, than all of the previous systems. This absurd setup has been around a long time. Maybe so long you just don't care anymore, you're used to it. But the current system is dumber than the previous systems, and every new system we're told is going to be better than the last, but truthfully, they just keep getting worse. Every year that goes by, those of us that are critical of the setup, right, that are interested in the game, real games, and we don't want to see schools playing directional schools just to get wins, we're told the system is going to be less subjective. That's the premise every time, because that's going way back in time. The thing was completely subjective, and it now is completely subjective. But we're told it's not going to be as subjective, and it ends up being completely subjective. So years ago, the champion in college football was voted on by sports writers. And over time, plenty of us complained about that setup. And I guess even people within the sport, barely, complained about that setup and said there's got to be another way. And so as many of us are complaining about the voting system, the pageantry system, right? It's nothing more than a beauty contest. It really isn't. The question is, who's going to pick them? That's the only difference between now and then. Who it is picking them. You're not playing games. You don't have a playoff. But the more we've enjoyed the NFL, the more we've seen how compelling and interesting the NFL is, the more we realize how stupid the college setup is. And that's today. Today is dumber, I think, than any time. I really do. So it used to be voted on by sports writers. Then it morphed into... Then we thought if we just give it some names and some titles, that somehow it's going to be cooler and it's going to be a more compelling playoff, like the Bowl Championship Series, which really was nothing more than a selection process as well to give you two teams. Again, everything is to avoid a playoff. The people in the industry, mainly the overpaid coaches who are bloated and who run the game, what they're trying to do is avoid playing games. You do know that, right? They don't want to play playoff games. They just want to win games. And usually that means they handpick the opponents so they can win those games. It's as ridiculous as boxing used to be. So the college coaches run the entire system, so they're going to avoid a playoff system. And you shouldn't tolerate it. The network shouldn't tolerate it. And the advertisers shouldn't tolerate it. And what you're getting now is no better than it's ever been. It's dumber, in fact. So, I don't know how today's system, how anybody even pretends today's system of 4 teams, select having a group of bureaucrats get together at an airport Hilton and decide who it is they think their opinion is the best 4 teams, as if that's better than the days of sports writers picking the best team. Right? It's the exact same thing as it's always been. It's just that you've got college bureaucrats, sports bureaucrats, that work in the industry that meet up for bagels and coffee to select the teams. That's what you have now. How can I make this argument? Well, it's really easy. But case in point, and I think this is what really got me thinking in these terms. I'll explain to you how I think it could be easily better. Easily. It's very simple. So today on ESPN, it's talked about all the time. It's debated all the time, and I don't like how people think that's good. I have no problem having I'm in the talk show business, having conversations about what you think and how you feel and what's right and wrong and all that stuff. Right? I get it. That should have no bearing on the selection process. ESPN today talking about the final. The college football playoff poll was released, which means bureaucrats meet, have bagels, some probably take smoke breaks, and they pick the teams on their opinion. And they're ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And it is self-centered, and it's driven by coaches who don't want to have to play anybody else. Here we go today. This is the part that set me off. This is Paul Feinbaum, a discussion this morning on ESPN. He does a show for ESPN. I don't know that I disagree with him typically, but the premise of this discussion is everything wrong with the current setup. And let me circle back. I'm not saying all this because my alma mater could win its league and get left out. I don't care what the name of the school is that wins its league. Why is it that the NFL has got this figured out and the incestuous world of college football refuses to do the same?
Let's say if one-loss Bama knocks off undefeated Georgia, then what?
That should not be a question, should it? I mean, we're talking about Georgia, and I know before Heather comes in with the facts and the bylaws, let me explain what Georgia has done for the past 3 years. They haven't lost in forever. I mean, they will win on Saturday night against Georgia Tech, the 29th straight game. That's never happened before in the SEC. It's hardly ever happened in college football. You might have to go to Bud Wilkinson in the 50s to find a point of reference, and I think there's one other one in there. This is a dynasty that we're talking about. So what does that have to do with this year? Georgia is still the best team this year, and if they lose one game to a very good Alabama team, I don't think it should disqualify them. It certainly shouldn't disqualify them against some of the other teams we're talking about. Of course, that has to happen, and I don't know that many people who are predicting it.
Heather, do you see any world that we could live in where the SEC could be out entirely from the college football playoff final at all? At all?
It's certainly possible. Listen, first of all, I would be shocked if it happened. Let me put that out there. I would be shocked. But if you have undefeated Washington, if you have Georgia winning the SEC, Alabama winning the SEC, you have undefeated Big Ten champion, you have undefeated Florida State, we can't talk about this without talking about the head-to-head between Alabama and Texas. You can't. But what's important for people to remember is no one in the country will have a better opportunity to impress the selection committee in the conference championship game than Alabama.
Stop it.
Because they're playing the committee's
They're trying to impress someone who's meeting at an airport Hilton, and you're going to tell me the system today is better than it used to be. This is absurd. This is the equivalent of saying the Chiefs won the Super Bowl last year. They are now in the AFC Championship game. Yeah, because they're good, and Patrick Mahomes, and look how good they were a year ago. This is asinine, man. It really is. I know I'm not supposed to be sitting here ripping my own industry. I don't know that it's anyone's fault in the industry, but the conversation is so circular and dumb. Georgia's good, Jeff. Yeah, the Chiefs were good a year ago, too. What are you talking about? Why is this so difficult? And I tell you why it's difficult. As usual, the coaches run this, and this is what they want because they don't want to play. They don't want to play. The Jimbo Fishers of the world, these rich guys are driving this sport, and it's not interesting. No one ever has a conversation like this about the NFL. And don't say for a single second that's what makes college football better. You're going to argue with me that 12 bureaucrats meeting in an airport Hilton to pick the 4 teams is a better setup than the NFL. Really? Okay. Well, I think that's pathetic. So how this works, these ridiculous debates, you just heard it. I mean, what is that? I don't even know how to have the conversation. You know, they were better in September than they are in October. You know, because for 3 years, they've been really good. Yeah. Okay, Georgia's won back-to-back championships, so they're in. Florida State lost their starting quarterback, so they should be out. Ohio State is number 1, so in a close game, Ohio State could drop to number 4, which, of course, would keep out an undefeated team from some other league. Yeah, that's a good one, too. You know, Ohio State could drop from 1 to 4 in a close game, a well-played game, decided by a committee of 12 people who work in the sport. And then we could drop them to 4, says the committee at the airport Hilton, and then they would be ahead of a team, Washington, that had won their league and had beaten 3 consecutive ranked teams. But the committee at the airport Hilton decided they're better. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. It's just blah, blah, blah. Okay. Arguing whether Texas beating Alabama in September, but Alabama is now better than Texas. So what is my point exactly? Okay, Jeff, you jerk. What's the solution? As always. See, first of all, tell the coaches to shut up. Get out of here, rich guy. You just go play. Do you ever see a scenario in which football coaches dictate the terms to the NFL? No. Get in your lane and coach and deal with it. That's why this thing looks and sounds the way it does, because they want their wins and they don't want to have to play each other. So the solution, as always, the solution is the NFL. The model is the solution. This takes less than a minute and a half to create. Probably less than that, but I'll stretch it out. I dare you to tell me this is not better. Simple, factual, scoreboard, and better. It's that easy. And you know what you say to a coach? Shut up, $70 million man. Just shut up. Each of these 12, I don't know what they're going to be next year. Doesn't matter, okay? Each of these 12, 14, or 16 team leagues, conferences, sorry. However, we're going to have next year, okay? Doesn't matter. Each of them have divisions, okay? I don't care. East, West, North, South, Pacific, Gulf, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? Doesn't matter. The top 2 teams of each division should be in a playoff. The top seed is decided by how well you do against the rest of your league. Like the NFL. Beat your league, you go to the top. Not beat a directional school from across the country by 70 because your coach wants to play the game. Beat your league, you go to the top. Top 2 teams from each division go. There. You know what you don't need when that's set up? You don't need a committee at an airport Hilton. No. No one needs to talk. No opinions matter. So the top seeds because they win their league. Got it? Each division. So the top is decided by how well you do against the rest of your league, just like the NFL does. How well you do against Louisiana directional schools that the coach has scheduled doesn't matter. Those are wasted games. They have no effect. Doesn't matter if you win by 85 points or 1. What does matter is whether you win your division and how well you do against your division opponents. I don't care if you say one league is better than the other. So what? We'll figure it out when they all get to play each other. Then what, Jeff? Okay. That means there's 2 Big Ten divisions, there's 2 SEC divisions, there's 2 Big 12 divisions. All these leagues have multiple teams. And what they're doing is avoiding creating these divisions, again, so these coaches can go outside of their league and go schedule directional schools. That's what they want to do. That's what the industry is based on. That's why this entire system exists. So some rich coach can beat up on some directional school. And while the SEC has a reputation that is protected by this committee, and in the process, somebody like Washington gets screwed over, it's absurd. I don't care if in the playoffs you beat somebody by 70. I bet you don't. So each one of them has 2 divisions. There are 2 teams. That gives you, because they all have 12, 14, 16 teams, whatever it is. You keep taking the top 2, then you're up with 16 teams. That's how you get in. But there's no buts. There's none. There's none. You want a playoff, you have a playoff. The NFC South sucks right now. Okay? They're in the playoffs. And they're going to get rolled first round of the playoffs if they're so bad. It'll work itself out. You know what's better? More playoff games, not fewer playoff games. That's better. More games that matter are better than half of the games in a college season that don't matter at all. They don't. And you know what else this would do when your league and winning your league and qualifying in your league gets you to a bigger playoff, which would be a 16-team playoff? 16, not 4 selected by people with cigarettes and bagels. 16 teams that play their way in. You know what it would do? It would take out the risk of playing big games outside of your conference. Now, if you say you want your school to schedule cream puffs, then go ahead. Go ahead. Ticket prices will go down. It'll fix itself. But those games don't matter. They don't matter. So there's no incentive for coaches to dictate the terms of the entire industry because those non-conference games against cream puffs are not going to matter. The networks would then get involved, and they would say, hey, Georgia, don't play that directional school. We really want you, because we pay you, we want you to go play USC. Do that. There's no risk to you. And you know what, Georgia? This is how the NFL works. See, you work for us. You don't work for the coach. We need a good show, so you're going to go play a good show. The entire incentive would be turned around if you play your way in by winning your divisions into a 16 playoff. The higher seed plays at home throughout, just like the NFL. How do you choose the higher seed? Again, that takes approximately 35 seconds to figure out. Okay. You're seeded based on 1 loss record, 2 conference record, 3 record against other playoff teams, 4 if there's still a tie to decide, then you use the strength of schedule composite. There's 4 ways. It took 15 seconds to come up with those 4 ways, and not at one point did anyone's opinion matter. None. There's no more committees needed. None. There's no more coaches' thoughts. There's no more arguments. There's no more debates. You end up with 16 teams in a playoff. If one conference sucks, then they're going to get bumped out. That's it. You know what happens in December? Not a whole lot of football. Why? Why not? Why not play? Why not have real playoff games? Guess what? It won't happen. It won't. It won't happen because the bureaucrats that meet to select the 12 teams answer to the coaches, and the coaches don't want any part of a 16-team playoff constructed the way I just suggested.